Watching this video, she did not take that question lightly and seemed to be personally offended by it. How did that go? Tell us about it.
Right. You definitely saw at least a flash of intensity there when she was asked about the...
Joe, I want to turn now to a question that Vice President Harris was asked about on Comedy Central. She was asked whether Joe Biden or Senator Joe Manchin was president. And I have to say, watching this video, she did not take that question lightly and seemed to be personally offended by it. How did that go? Tell us about it.
Right. You definitely saw at least a flash of intensity there when she was asked about the relationship and so on with West Virginia Senator who has been holding up a lot of the Biden agenda up on Capitol Hill. So let's just listen to it and talk more about it.
So who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne.
Come
on. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president. It's Joe Biden.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden. And I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
Charlemagne the God. There we go, Charlemagne the God. And what's really interesting, I think, is that there's history here between these two people. He's interviewed the vice president before, and we haven't seen that level of intensity. There's a lot of frustration, as you know, Jim, going around in Washington, D.C., among progressives on the left about what the senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, has been doing, especially in regards to the president's Build Back Better agenda, and that's just one reflection of it. But the bottom line up on Capitol Hill with Joe Manchin, the Democrats in the White House, is this is how they roll in a 50-50 Senate.
Yeah. Well, and Kamala Harris was very, very candid about her feelings there. I thought that was very interesting. All right, Joe Johns, thank you very much for that. And more headaches for the Biden administration as the president extends the timeline for his Build Back Better plan once again, which also means more time for Democrats to fight it out in public. This week, heated negotiations and an intense lunch among Democratic senators left some with a serious case of heartburn.
What's your general feeling about where things stand? Are you frustrated?
Frustrated and disappointed.
At this point, is it time to start thinking about maybe breaking up BBB into more digestible pieces? Is this bill just going to...
I don't know if that's the answer or not. Apparently, Manchin's approach to this has changed a lot. I don't know where he is today or where he'll be tomorrow.
You can have one person or two people just stop everything, and that is why people in our country should know that a 50-50 Senate sucks and we can't get things done.
I'm joined now by that last senator you heard from there, Mazie Hirono of Hawaii. Well, you told it like it is. Being in the Senate can suck, especially when there are only 50 senators on your side. I guess, what is your sense of things right now with Senator Joe Manchin? I almost feel like we should take a timeout when it comes to mentioning his name on national television because we say it so much. But I say that in jest to some extent. But is it all essentially riding on whether or not he can come to any kind of agreement when it comes to the Build Back Better plan? Is that where we are right now?
The last I heard from Joe is that he has an open mind about Build Back Better, so he's not slamming the door shut. So obviously discussions are continuing. But
Doesn't
at the same time...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but doesn't he always say that?
We keep working on him. So clearly with 50-50, with the Republicans not lifting a single pinky to help the people of our country, it all rests on the Democrats. And you only have one party that's governing, that's doing anything to help people, and you have the other party just sitting on their hands doing absolutely nothing. That would be the Republican Party. So at the same time, as I said, Joe has said he's keeping an open mind. That is good enough for me to continue the dialogue and discussions. At the same time, I am very concerned about all of the dozens of voter suppression bills that are being enacted all across the country, even as we speak, Jim. And so we need to pass voter protection legislation ASAP.
And I do want to talk about that, but let me just mention the senator who hails from West Virginia one more time here. CNN's Manu Raju, my colleague, asked the senator about one of the sticking points in the bill, the child tax credit. Let's watch.
They're pressuring you to change your position on the child tax
one
credit.
pressures me.
I'm from West Virginia. Are you going to change your position on that? Yeah, but the way that's in the bill, the 1-year extension.
I've always been for child tax credit and always will be.
I guess what's interesting about that question and his response, it does go to, I think, the other reporter question that we heard earlier when we were playing some of that sound is it time to start thinking about breaking up Build Back Better into the bricks of Build Back Better and perhaps trying to shepherd those through one or two or a few at a time?
All of the provisions of Build Back Better will reduce costs for families. For example, childcare. Why is it that so many women can't even get back to work because they can't afford or the childcare is not available? So that's a huge issue for our families, childcare costs, and then prescription drug costs, lowering those are really, really important to seniors in particular. And so all of the provisions are important, and I'm not going to stand here and start talking about breaking up Build Back Better, but clearly, Joe has said he keeps an open mind, and that's what I'm going with. And I think last I also heard his discussions with the president, wherein Joe apparently told the president that he is supportive of the kind of money to do Build Back Better, which is close to $2 trillion.
And I wanted to ask you about something that Senator Mitch McConnell said. He was saying earlier this week that he's lobbied for years for Senator Manchin to switch parties. But I want to ask you about something else. Speaking of the Senate Minority Leader, he has said in this past week something very interesting about the January 6th committee. He made it sound as though he is somewhat supportive of that endeavor, that he thinks it needs to get to the bottom of what they're looking into. Let's listen to that and talk about that.
I think the fact-finding is interesting. We're all going to be watching it. It was a horrendous event, and I think that what they're seeking to find out is something the public needs to know.
Something the public needs to know, he says there, and I know Democrats are suspicious of Mitch McConnell's motives on, almost a, constant basis. But what did you make of that when you heard him make those remarks?
He can say that, but please note that he did not support the creation of an independent commission to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, which is just a horrible part of the big lie of Trump and contesting the results of a free and fair election. So Trump was contesting or raising those issues both before, during, and after the election, and January 6th was one part, a horrible part of that effort to deny the results of that election. And it's still going on, by the way, with Republican legislatures all across the country, making it that much harder for people to vote in the most obvious kinds of voter suppression ways. Jim, there was a time when they tried to do that, they at least tried to sort of hide their reasons. But now it's like, hey, we're going to make it tougher for all of you to vote, and tough luck. Do something about it. That seems to be their attitude.
And so that begs the question, what is going to get done about voting rights and these voting rights bills that are stuck in the Senate? The president is vowing to make a new push on it. This week, you said you're relying on the courts to protect voting. But, is it time? Do you think that there is any hope that the filibuster could have a carve out for these voting bills? What are the discussions like in that area? Do you think there's any hope for that? Or is this really just going to be a matter for the courts, do you think?
I said that if we don't do filibuster reform, that we are going to have to rely on the courts to protect people's constitutional right to vote. Now, I talked to Joe Manchin just a few nights ago, and I asked him, do you support a talking filibuster? He said yes. So I support a talking filibuster.
In prison, in exile. Well, all eyes are really on the turnout because it's not much of a contest this election, with pretty much nobody from the pro-democracy side turning out. Many of those are either in prison, in exile, or they are simply boycotting the election because they don't see it as a legitimate poll. However, the people are voting. It's hard to gauge yet just how low or how high the turnout is. It is at 11:30, 9.35% of Hong Kongers had cast their vote. That's 2 percentage points down on the last two elections in 2012 and 2016. But it is a little bit early, really, to see how few people will vote. One opinion poll recently said that as many as 51% of Hong Kongers said that they would not cast their vote in this election.
And Oliver, as I was saying, this is very much a patriots-only ballot, with China very much looming large over proceedings.
That's right. China pretty much recast the Legislative Council elections in its own image. The Beijing's liaison office in Hong Kong said recently that Hong Kong is getting real democracy after seeking Western-style democracy before long. Certainly what is on offer today is not really recognisable to most people who live in democracies. Only, as you said, only 20% of the 90 seats will be voted by the public, and 1,500 Beijing loyalists will elect 40 of those seats. So it's as far from universal suffrage as you can really get. And it's quite likely as well, if the turnout is low, that the figures who are actually voting today for those 20 seats will be